Hi, Mark, and today we have to talk about one thing I haven't mentioned yet in the last migration videos, and I have to talk about the newest breach of international law, unfortunately. Anyone who travels to Great Britain illegally should no longer have access to the asylum procedure. The United Nations sees this as a clear breach of the law, and I said this a lot of times. But now the British House of Commons has approved this controversial bill that would deny illegal immigrants the right to seek asylum in the UK. In the third reading, 289 MPs voted in favour and 230 against. The House of Lords has yet to approve it, although it can only propose changes and cannot veto it. Specifically, this law is aimed at all those people who have entered the country irregularly. According to this new law, instead of an asylum procedure, they should first be interned and then deported either to their home country or what they call a safe third country. According to government plans, that would be Rwanda, and I already talked about this, while this is not a safe third country. The deportees will not be allowed to enter the UK for the rest of their lives. With the law, the government under Prime Minister Rishi Sunak wants to particularly deter refugees who cross the English Channel to this island on their small boats. And last year there was more than 46,000 people. In 2020 there were only 8,500. The Council of Europe and the United Nations Refugee Agency, the UNHCR, have strongly criticized the law. Great Britain is thereby violating its international obligations towards asylum seekers, and the UNHCR describes the project as a clear violation of the Refugee Convention. British Home Secretary Suella Braverman, on the other hand, of course, defended her plans. In an interview with the Sky News broadcaster, she claimed that many people who had arrived irregularly were involved in drug-related crime, violent crime, or prostitution. However, she did not provide any evidence of this. But I talked about this earlier. The fact that this woman is still in office at all is due to the weakness of the Prime Minister. When Sunak succeeded Boris Johnson, Liz Truss, not Boris Johnson, there's so many prime ministers, he needed the support from the party's right-wingers. And that's why he brought her back, although she had to resign just 6 days earlier because she broke the government's code of conduct. You have to imagine that. And we know her policies for a long time, and Sunak, of course, did when he got her in. But having a woman like this in the Home Office, okay. But Brexit swept a number of such politicians into the highest offices. They are young, highly ambitious, staunchly ideological, and national populists. And Braverman and Patel, they are being a woman and an ethnic minority member was another part why he could sell this. But the Conservative Party leader David Cameron specifically wanted to promote both groups in order to stir up his far too white and far too male lower house faction. The London-born lawyer of Indian African descent came into Parliament in 2015 under Cameron, and a year later belonged to the Brexit rebels against Cameron's Europe policy. And she initially made a career as a propagandist for the toughest possible exit from the EU, because Prime Minister Boris Johnson appointed her then the Queen's Counsel and brought her into the cabinet as Attorney General against the protest of the bar associations who complained about her lack of experience and even inaccuracies in her CV. And as Johnson's term ended, she was running for successor without leaving the cabinet, which usually they have to do, or which is custom to do. But deporting refugees and migrants to Rwanda without any procedures, as it's planned now, is her dream and even her obsession, as she always says. And otherwise, she's always good for some really provocative stuff. She's herself an immigrant daughter, and she says that the British Empire has done a lot of good things. And cultural Marxism prevails on the political left, and she wants to abolish all the woke nonsense. Oh boy. And these days, Premier Sunak has gained strength, but with other things, but unmistakably, with something like Braverman, we would call it, with a proverb, to have a snake on your bosom or something like this. the Cleopatra thing we all remember, at least from the most famous Cleopatra movie with Cleopatra and Julius Caesar. He is holding the place for something like Braverman in the worst case. And even if we see in some votes that the extreme right-wingers are not so powerful in Parliament at the moment, as it seems at least, he sold his soul to them to become prime minister. And with that, you cannot even be sure that he will be the one running in the general elections in 2024. And with knowing the Tories and seeing what happened there in recent years, it's becoming quite interesting again. Who will be the candidate for prime minister in that election? Will it be Rishi Sunak? He had some successes with the public and in the polls with the Windsor framework, something the Brexiteers dearly hate, and Braverman will not be a friend of that as well. But it is he's not in a very good situation still, and he still is not a very strong prime minister looking at the people he has to depend on. But we will see how this will continue. And I will definitely talk about this in future videos. And I'll see you in my next video. I'll be back.